Ladies and gentlemen, hi, how you doing? Welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for stopping by. You may recall that back at the start of the year, Call of Duty posted a whole blog talking about their matchmaking system, and I've actually got it pulled up here. This may look familiar to you if you caught the video. They released this image with all the determining factors in their matchmaking system between connection, the time to the match, your skill, the platform you're on, whether you use voice chat or not, your input device, what maps and modes you play, the playlist diversity that you often go through, and they detailed all of this. Some of the things in here were very insightful and very transparent. Other things kind of left you thinking, they say that's the case, but I don't know if I feel that in game. Well, we've got a new update on this. One of the things that Call of Duty claimed in this is that ping is king, and they've now got this new section on here, the April 4th update, saying the design of Call of Duty matchmaking is driven by our goal to create the best experience for our community. As part of our commitment to an ongoing conversation about matchmaking, we're launching a new series of white papers from our technology team that'll further expand on how we build online matches. The first topic focuses on ping. So their whole claim of ping is king. They're going to dive into this and really explain what's going on. Now, keep in mind, they also preview that several other things are going to be broken down in these deep dives, including skill and how that factors into matchmaking in June of 2024. They'll talk about ranked play matchmaking in summer of 2024, and then also experimentation methods in fall of 2024. Keep in mind, they also said they were going to talk about the Warzone matchmaking because this blog was only about multiplayer. So I haven't forgot about that, Call of Duty. You need to talk about Warzone, but let's go and dive into this full paper on ping and see if it's really king as they claim. So this is a 19-page PDF. Now don't worry, we're not going to go through the next 2 hours like a lecture in college going through all of this, but they do pose some interesting topics here, and they describe some things in a very interesting way. They give us our general overview, and they talk about some of the keywords and stuff like that that they've also gone through in that previous blog that we talked about before. For the purposes of this white paper, our focus will be on the core components of most of the heavy-weighted factors in the franchise blog, ping, as it relates to connection and search time, as it relates to the process of time to match. So ping is the round-trip time for data to travel from the player's game to the dedicated server running it. Lower ping means a smoother in-match experience, of course, and we all know that when you're on 20 ping, the game feels a whole lot better than when you're on 200 ping and stuttering and playing in slow motion. Ultimately, any matchmaking factors trade off against one another, and we are constantly tuning our matchmaking algorithm to define the right balance. For example, using the above factors, if we spend longer time searching for a match, we're more likely to find one with low ping and skill disparity, but spending too long searching is a negative player experience and doesn't guarantee a better result. So usually if it takes you way longer to get a match, it's going to give you a better one, which is interesting because as you're queuing into a game, it starts off saying searching for a match with 25 ping. And if it takes too long, then searching for a match with 50 ping, 75, 100. And then you find one within the 100 one, and then you go in and it's like, okay, I'm on 15 ping. I personally can't say that because I'm never on low ping because I'm always playing with East Coast players and I'm here in Colorado, so it's rough for me personally. But if you're playing solo or if you're the host of your party, whatever, you're going to typically find that experience, or so they say, right? We also have to adjust our tuning based on factors external to matchmaking, such as game design and evolutions in the broader internet ecosystem. Though this is not the focus of the document, we're just providing various different things. They talk about more keywords here: delta ping, lobby and match fullness, skill disparity. A lot of it's self-explanatory, and a lot of it we've also talked about in that previous blog. Like, for instance, a lot of their terminology here, we know what dedicated servers are. Delta ping, the difference in packet round trip time between a player's best data center and the data center they are playing on. So there's a lot of very technological talk here. There's a lot of fancy words and whatnot, but I'm gonna do my best to explain it to you guys in a transparent way. And by the way, as we are going through all this, if you enjoy the video, do me a favor, drop a like on it. It really does help the channel grow. And if you're new here, be sure to hit that subscribe button because I got you covered on a daily basis with everything you need to know about Call of Duty. But matchmaking ping. COD uses a client-server model for hosting matches where the client is the player's console or PC and the server is running on one of many data centers around the world, or their servers, right? The latency from a client to the game server is a significant factor in the quality of experience, so the matchmaking system aims to give you the best ping. There are two different values of ping when talking about the servers: the network latency from the client to the server, and then also the in-game latency. That is the time from the client update to the server response in-game. This is why things like lag comp exist and whatnot, why kill cams often depict something that was very inaccurate to what actually happened in-game. That's why. So the impact of ping on players. As the server runs the game simulation, player actions are not complete until they've been sent to the server, so that lag compensation, the time that it takes there. Then they're processed and the client's been updated with that new game state. Every time you fire a bullet, slide cancel, jump. The total duration of this process consists of network latency and the simulation tick time in the server and client. Higher network latency will increase the delay, so the more higher ping you're on, if you're on 200, it's going to take way longer for these things to happen smoothly. First-person action games like COD are particularly sensitive to latency. In a turn-based game, latency of 200 would not be a problem, but in COD it does matter. The Call of Duty netcode aims to reduce the perceived impact of latency, but it can't eliminate it. There's always going to be lag. High pings can cause anomalies such as other players warping or teleporting, so each individual player, if someone's on a really bad ping, it's also going to hinder your experience some because they're going to be lagging, and what you're seeing them do is not necessarily totally accurate to what they're seeing even. It's really complicated and it creates for a very messy situation. Searching, population, and matchmaking wait time. So any matchmaking system will take some amount of time to find a game. Fundamentally, that's tied to the number of players searching. If there's 200,000 people searching, it's a lot easier to connect than if there were 2,000. Matchmaking wait time is not the full time window between the button press of start search and landing in a match. Searching time is limited to the time between the start search button and the computing a resulting lobby to place the player into. This does not include the orchestration process of connections, the level load time, or anything else like that. Those are important things to consider about user experience, so they're still looking at those things, but they're also just focused on how long it takes to get you from when you press search to the connection page, basically. A system with a few constraints on matchmaking and high population may find matches within seconds. Sometimes it might take longer if there's strict constraints. Even a singular focus on ping causes search times that are non-trivial. Let's consider an example of 1 million users in a game. In most game, players do not spend their time in the core loop of matchmaking, playing a match, then matchmaking again. Let's say, for our example, players spend about 80% of their time in this core loop. So our 1 million players are actually 800,000 in this core loop. Suppose a match takes 15 minutes to play. Ideally, a matchmaking time would be a short 15 seconds, as we want this to be far smaller than our time spent in match. This means only 1 in 60 players are searching at any given moment, so 800,000 online in the core loop are only 13,000 searching concurrently. Those 13,000 searches are then split across all the 40 different data centers and about 40 playlist options, so it's being split into who's actually searching, split into what they're searching, split into where they're searching from, and it compounds on that, getting that pool smaller and smaller and smaller. This is why you'll find matches quicker in modes like TDM or Kill Confirmed than you would maybe some more obscure ones that don't have a huge active player base. This leaves on average about 8 players that are compatible with one another during any given 15-second interval. It's actually kind of crazy. Keep in mind the average match size is 12, so that's not even a full match. That's a drastic oversimplification, but it illustrates how, even with large numbers online, ideal ping is not always practical if we want to match players quickly, so that's why it takes longer. Okay, so that does make sense given what we were talking about earlier with why is it sometimes taking me 2 minutes to get a match, but then the ping is good even though it says searching for 150 milliseconds or something like that. Players are not evenly distributed across all of the different data centers and playlist offerings. Team deathmatch is very popular, more so than hardcore search, like I was just saying. So depending on the time of day, it might be easier or harder to find a match quickly in those situations. Depending on the region, playlist, time of day, this may be much faster or slower. Ranked modes also have a much longer search time because they're more constrained on player divisions. Wait time is an important consideration when optimizing ping, as excessively long wait times will lead to players canceling or quitting the game. Matchmaking in COD is tuned to handle varying search volumes for different times a day in different regions. This system manages the trade-off between search time and player ping. Identifying good data centers for players, so what server you're connecting to. Oftentimes you'll search for a match and say, hey, wait a minute, why am I connecting to a 75 ping game when I could be finding a match on a 15 ping game because maybe you live close to one of the server regions or something. So obviously we want to ideally pick the data center with the lowest ping. To do this, we need some idea of the player's pings to the data centers. Call of Duty has in the past used IP-based geolocation combined with physical distance to give an approximation of expected ping. Physical distance to the data center doesn't always correlate though. Okay, so I'm asking questions and they're answering. I guess that's always nice. This is because internet connections between two physical locations are generally not in straight lines. Fair enough. Many factors other than distance are also factored in. For example, physical features such as mountains or seas may prevent direct cable connections. In other instances, certain other things could block stuff and create different issues there. The Call of Duty game client runs quality of service checks against all data centers when the game is started, periodically between matches as well. This allows us to use real ping and packet loss data to get you the best server, essentially. Given these ping results, we can identify the data center with the lowest ping for a player. We don't only consider matching players to their lowest ping or best server, though. Other data centers may be very similar pings to the best data center. Oftentimes, players have several ones that are in close proximity or ideal for them. For example, a player with 16 millisecond ping to a center in Germany might have 18 ping to Holland or 22 to France. The first two will effectively be the same there, so they can select and choose between any of those when they are connecting them to a game. Pretty obvious here, but the more data centers there are, more servers there are in different locations, the more likely the player is going to have a good ping to at least one of those. As an extreme example, a data center in Antarctica would only give good pings to the scientists living there, but it's unlikely that they could form a Warzone match. I don't know why that's in there, but it is. Matching players with these data centers. The matchmaking system creates matches consisting of sets of players which are assigned to any given server. That's oftentimes why you might be seeing similar names in your lobbies back to back to back as well. Keep that in mind. So how should we group players? One option would be to assign players solely to their best data center and have a separate queue per data center. That would work reasonably well for busy data centers and popular low player count modes. But if you search for a rank match at 4 in the morning, then you would have a longer wait time or never form a match because there weren't enough players connecting to that server. So you can't just have one specific server you're always connecting to. Another option is to select a set of player based on other matchmaking criteria such as region, language, rank, and skill. So that then factors in and try to assign that to a data center. If we select players solely on criteria such as rank, then it's quite likely that they will not share a common data center. So that's pretty obvious. If you're solely going on a skill, matchmaking algorithm, then yeah, someone who is in Germany who has a crazy high skill might connect to somebody who's across the world because they're equal skill. That just wouldn't make sense. A game could aim to improve this by using matchmaking regions. Players either manually select a region or automatically are placed in one. The matchmaking system then groups players without consideration of ping, then the matches are formed. This approach has downsides though: poor optimization of pings within regions and suboptimal matching for players close to border regions, so that would make sense as well. We've got some images of what I presume is their example data centers here. For the border issue, consider two hypothetical regions, Europe and Asia. Players in Turkey could potentially use data centers in Europe or the Middle East. By having regions, we restrict them to one region so they have less population to match with, matching other matchmaking KPIs worse, or making other matchmaking KPIs worse, sorry. At different times of day, there would be more searching population in one region than another because of, time zones and whatnot, possibly forcing players to manually change regions, which they don't want. The first issue, where we end up using just a data center in the middle of a region, can be alleviated by splitting the regions into West and East NA, but this makes border issues even worse. Players now in the Midwest are forced to one side or the other. Call of Duty uses a different approach, which we describe here: acceptable data center backoff. The COD matchmaking system collects a large number of searching players and attempts to group them into matches that satisfy the constraints. Some of these constraints are fixed. For example, a player searching in the Resurgence game mode may not match with someone in TDM. That's obvious. Data center ping is a fixed component and a backoff. The fixed component is an absolute cutoff beyond which they will not search for a match. This cutoff can vary depending on the location and search population. For example, players in North America with good pings have a much lower cutoff than players in Africa due to the ability, shout out the very loud car outside, due to search population and data centers. The backoff based constraints uses increments of delta ping over search time. The backoff steps may be used varying depending on the game mode, location, and search population. The matchmaking system does this to manage the differing population demands of different modes and regions. To form a match, all players must have a common acceptable data center based on their current backoff level. This time-based backoff generally means that when there is a high search population, players will match quickly and then get their best data center, or one very close to it. If the search is waiting for a long time, the set of acceptable data centers will expand and the player may be placed in a data center with higher ping. So kind of going back and forth with what they said earlier, it might take longer to get that full match set up with ideal ping, or if it's taking too long, you're going to get a higher ping. After a match has been formed, it's got to be assigned to a data center. The data center can then be selected from the best set currently acceptable data centers based on each player's concurrent backoff levels. Within the set acceptable data centers, we pick the one with the lowest average ping. Like I said, there's a lot to go in with on this. Matchmaking algorithm. In the section above, we discuss the rules for matching groups of players, but not how these rules are used. In this section, we'll give you an overview. A search in the matchmaking algorithm is either a party searching for a lobby or an existing lobby searching for additional players. A lobby searching for additional players is treated very similar to a party searching for a lobby, but it only has one acceptable data center. So when you're trying to fill a lobby up, it's going to choose from people who will have the best connection to that data center. The matching algorithm runs on a fixed interval, typically every 5 seconds, on all searches currently in progress. The progress is roughly in a series of steps. So basically it's going 1, 2, 3, 4, making sure you qualify for certain things and selecting certain things to determine if you are going to connect to a certain data center or a certain lobby. The throughput of the matching process is inversely proportional to the number of candidates considered for each seed. So finding a good set of candidates is important. Just being able to qualify to connect to something. And this is happening like really fast, real life times, obviously. 15 seconds is their ideal lobby search time, right? So for example, this explains things a little bit better, I think. 4,000 searches available for matching, 1,000 of those selected for use as seeds, 400 candidates per seed, producing matches with 100 players. As previously discussed, geographical distance is not the perfect approximation for a data center, but use the distance in the candidate seed essentially may not provide optimal candidates for the data center matching. In practice, with a large enough candidate set, it has been a good enough approximation. So that's how they're getting their rough estimates of searching for blank ping, so on and so forth. This can also consider overlap for configurable fields. COD provides a quick play option where you can select multiple things, then you get different seeds from various different game modes and whatnot. Server capacity. Data centers may have a variety of hardware with different specs and configuration to accommodate the needs of various modes. Large data centers tend to be located in high population areas. That makes sense. If the selected best data center does not have an available idle server for a match, then we'll attempt to use the next best one, so on and so forth. The matchmaking system is periodically updated with the available capacity per data center so that it can then avoid creating matches in a data center with low or no capacity. So if there's just not enough pings to a certain one, it's not going to really exist there. They're not going to have the effort to try and hope enough people to actually go through and queue and connect to it if they're in the region or area closest to that, and that's deemed their best one. So monitoring and results. The ping achieved by COD matchmaking is monitored to ensure the players are getting good results. The location and use of data centers is also monitored to ensure that they're being effectively used. Whenever matchmaking criteria are added or changed or game modes are changed, the impact on players' pings is analyzed. The primary focus of our attention is on delta ping, which is discussed below. We also monitor in-game latency, but much of that time is outside the control of the matchmaking system, so that's not their main focus of attention. Ping measurement is handled by the game client. Each game client will take several ping measurements periodically between games on the different data centers. This ensures the matchmaking system is up to date for everyone. The matchmaking system then records these measurements as a part of each search, which in turn feeds into our monitoring of every search for COD. I wonder how much of that is tracked though in terms of like engagement. Are you searching a ton at 9 p.m. or are you searching a ton at 11 a.m. or what's the deal there? Thanks to the large number of data centers used around the world, 94% of COD players have the best data center ping of 50 milliseconds or lower. Keep in mind though, if you're playing with people from around different parts of the world, if you're on the West Coast playing with East Coast players, that'll also sort of muddy the waters some, I would imagine. Matchmaking system described above is effective in achieving good pings for players. 75% of players get results within 10 milliseconds of the best possible data center. 95% are within 20 milliseconds there. The higher ping values in this distribution are generally from parts of the world with low search volumes or off-peak times of day, depending on what your best data center might be, so it's got to change you to a new one. Activision actively monitors delta ping regionally and across all playlists, taking a snapshot from November 9th to the 15th, just after MW3's launch. We can see the breakdown of player data below. The median shows the typical player experience in all regions. Much of the world has a 0 or near 0 delta ping, which is across the board. It gets a lot higher though when South Africa is searching for a zombies lobby or invasion is being searched in East Asia, because that's not nearly as common for that region. 145 for hardcore free-for-all in South Africa as well, just with the data centers available in those areas. An important reference here is that a single server frame is 16 milliseconds, so the vast majority of players have a delta ping less than that. There are a few cases where large player counts and relatively low search volumes in regions like Modern Warfare Zombies in South Africa, where players are often matched out of their ideal location. We regularly see players in South Africa matching into Europe to find matches with larger player counts. The below view is the 90th percentile of delta ping. This covers the worst case scenario for players. These are typically searches at unusual times a day for your region. This greatly constrains our options as we continue to pursue a short search time. So you can see it gets a lot worse depending on the mode, if it's a little bit more obscure, and then also the region for it. Here you can see that North America and European players are still consistently matched into low lobbies just because of the vast population and the close proximity to those servers. EU is still around a single server frame and increased latency, while North America varies far more. This is due to the concentration of population centers again. As soon as it's necessary for a player on the East Coast to match to the West Coast, the ping will increase substantially. We see here that is in the 90th percentile. Many other parts of the world, South Africa, East Asia, and some playlists in South America don't have a sufficient local search volume to create matches in those nearby servers during low traffic times a day. Ultimately, the best player experience for many of those is found by matching them to other regions. So time zones play a big factor in this. I get a lot of, hey, why am I matching with players that are from this part of the world even though I'm on this server? What's going on? That's giving actually really good data into how that's happening, because a lot of it just has to do with maybe the mode you're in and then also the time of day and what servers they may have in close proximity to them. So in North America, search times are kept 5 to 15 seconds faster than Oceanic. We accomplished this by moving North American players during the low search volumes to a nearby DC, coming in at the cost of some delta ping. So they raise the ping slightly to give more matches just because there is obviously the higher pop in North America versus Oceania. In Oceania, there aren't a lot of good alternatives. As a result, their delta ping stays low, but their search time increases. In the extreme cases, after we failed to find matches in Oceania, we place them in other regions if they just can't fill the lobby good enough. All this information is also used when considering future data center plans if they're adding in new servers. Our goal is to minimize that network latency. We use our monitoring data to look for sites that have good connectivity to a lot of players or help close the gap between large population centers one by one. Another important dimension to consider when evaluating our success is providing a low delta ping to all players, including those of higher skill. It's important that no matter the skill level of the player, we provide a low latency experience. So again, they're saying ping is taking priority over skill entirely. The visualization below breaks down our delta ping metric by skill decile. In it, you can see that our delta ping experience is highly consistent for all of our skill players, regardless of their skill level. In other words, a player's skill has no impact on the latency. You can see their percentage bucket here. If you're 1.0 versus 0.1, the vast majority are going to be a little bit in the same area here, roughly around the 80 mark of delta ping across the board. And so it's a level of consistency there. You can see there are some few outliers here and there, but that's interesting that they go through and they explain all of this data. They give us a lot of information, some of which I'm not even fully able to comprehend with my brain power. But with this, they're showing us the data, they're explaining it to us. But then there's oftentimes in game where you're feeling something completely different, where if you are a high skill player, 2, 3, 4 KD, and you're getting into lobbies and it's like, why am I at 120 ping? And it's nothing but other similar KD players or super sweaty players, right? So it's tough to sit here and say, we know that skill-based matchmaking is a thing in COD. We know it's one of the factors in their matchmaking as they described. They are saying, though, that its relation to ping is not as important as we may deem it from public perception when we're sitting there saying, hey, am I in these high ping lobbies because I'm good at the game? And then lastly, their summary here. Reducing ping is a challenge for all online games, and it stands true in COD. COD uses a large number of data centers to provide local data centers where possible, and the matchmaking system uses a greedy optimization algorithm with an acceptable data center backoff to minimize the delta ping for players, subject to the limits of available search population. The ping achieved by the matchmaking system is monitored to assess effectiveness of our algorithms and the suitability of available data centers. So it's a really deep dive into ping, basically explaining how you're connecting to servers and kind of, again, emphasizing their concept of ping being king. Whether you want to take that at face value or go a little bit more off of your personal experience with it, it's up for you to decide. I do think a lot of this adds up to with what you see when you are queuing in your general ping, but then you got to think of the other factors. This is just one of the things that goes into that general list with that image that we showed earlier with what modes you're constantly playing, your region, your actual skill level, everything like that. Another thing that I did want to highlight real quick here is this paragraph towards the top. To be sure that we're providing players with the best in-match experience, we pay close attention to the blend of matchmaking focused key performance indicators such as ping, lobby and match fullness, skill disparity, match outcomes and metrics, and search time if you're winning a lot of games or not, as well as more player focused KPIs, including how long you're on the game, how much you're quitting out of a game, player retention, and player survey results. These metrics are not used directly as inputs to the matchmaking selection algorithm, but are observable outcomes. So they're monitoring that data, but they're saying they're not using that. That would be engagement-based matchmaking is what they're describing here. They're saying that they're not using that to determine your ping, I guess, directly. to the server, but we also know that skill and other things like this do end up factoring into your overall matchmaking experience. So to me, I'm kind of getting mixed answers, but it's nice to have this level of transparency, I guess, to begin with. Like, this is not something that we've really ever seen before from COD, so that's cool here. I am curious to learn more about this image. I should have scrolled up here. I didn't remember that this was up at the top here, but all of these things, I'd love to see a more broad breakdown, just like what we had here, of all of these in their own specific way for sure. But that is their new discussion on ping being king here in Call of Duty matchmaking. Curious your thoughts in the comments below, but that's going to wrap things up. If you enjoyed, do me a favor and drop a like on the video. Be sure to hit that subscribe button on your way out to guarantee you're always up to date with all things going on in COD. But once again, thank you so much for tuning in. And until next time, take it easy, have an awesome rest of your day, and I'll catch you later. Peace out.